For 6 years, I paid my parents' bills. Rent, groceries, medical expenses, anything they needed, I covered it without hesitation. I never questioned it because, in my heart, I believed that family takes care of each other. I wanted to give back, to make their lives easier after all they had done for me growing up. But the moment I needed something from them, just one small favor, it was as if all those years of sacrifice meant nothing. It happened on a Friday evening. My boss had called for an emergency meeting, and my husband was stuck at work. Our usual babysitter had canceled last minute, and I had no other options left. I picked up the phone and called my parents, explaining the situation and asking if they could watch my 2-year-old daughter, Ella, for just a couple of hours. My mother sighed heavily. "That's not our job," she said bluntly. At first, I thought she was joking. "Mom, I just need a couple of hours. I have nowhere else to turn. We raised our kids," she continued. "We're done with babysitting. You should have planned better." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. After everything I had done for them, after 6 years of paying their rent when they struggled, after covering their medical bills, after making sure they never had to worry about money, they couldn't spare a single evening to help me. It wasn't just the refusal that hurt. It was the complete lack of gratitude, the sheer disregard for everything I had done. It was as if all those years of sacrifice had been expected, rather than appreciated. I hung up the phone, numb. That night, I scrambled to find another solution. Thankfully, a kind neighbor stepped in at the last minute, but the damage had already been done. My parents' words echoed in my head. Not our job. Before this moment of betrayal, I had spent years working tirelessly to support my parents. I had always been the responsible one, the child who took on the burden of making sure my family was financially stable. Growing up, I had seen my parents struggle. Money was always tight, and I learned early on that sacrifices had to be made. My sister, Amanda, was different. She was the carefree one, the golden child who was never expected to step up. While I worked part-time jobs in high school to help with groceries, Amanda was given spending money without question. After graduating college, I landed a decent-paying job and moved into my own apartment. But it wasn't long before my parents came to me with their problems. My father had lost his job, my mother's health was deteriorating, and the bills were piling up. Without hesitation, I stepped in. Month after month, I covered their rent, their utilities, and their medical expenses. I assured them that I would help them get back on their feet. But somehow, temporary help turned into 6 years of endless financial support. After that fateful phone call, something shifted inside me. I realized that my parents had never truly appreciated my sacrifices. They had taken my help for granted, assuming I would always be there to pick up the pieces. I spent the weekend reflecting on all the times I had put their needs above my own. The vacations I never took because I had to send them money. The savings I had drained to keep their bills paid. The stress I had carried on my shoulders while they lived comfortably without a second thought about how it affected me. Monday morning, I made a decision. I sat down and drafted a message. For the past 6 years, I have supported you financially without question. I did it out of love, because I believed family helps family. But after your response on Friday, I realized something. This relationship has been one-sided. I've given, and when I needed one small favor, you made it clear that my needs don't matter. Moving forward, I will no longer be responsible for your bills. I hope you understand. I hesitated for a moment before hitting send. But once I did, a wave of relief washed over me. The response came within minutes. My mother was furious. Are you seriously cutting us off over babysitting? We're your parents. You owe us for everything we did for you. And there it was, the confirmation that they saw my support as an obligation, not an act of love. I took a deep breath and replied, I don't owe you anything. I helped because I wanted to. But respect and support should go both ways. At first, they were angry. Then came the guilt-tripping, the silent treatment, and finally, the realization that I was serious. It wasn't easy, but I knew I had done the right thing. Over time, I channeled that energy into my own family, the one that truly appreciated me. I focused on my husband, my daughter, and the friends who had been there for me when I needed them most. My financial stability improved drastically. No longer having to send money every month meant I could finally build my savings, plan for vacations, and invest in my future. The weight of responsibility that had been crushing me for years was finally lifted. It took time, but I eventually healed from the betrayal. I no longer felt the need to seek validation from my parents. Instead, I surrounded myself with people who genuinely cared about me, who showed love and appreciation without expecting financial support in return. One day, months after I had cut off their financial support, my mother called me. We need help with the mortgage this month, she said, her voice softer than before. I sighed. I'm sorry, Mom. I can't. But. No. I've done my part. It's time for you to figure things out on your own. There was silence on the other end of the line. Then, finally, a quiet, okay. For the first time, I had set a boundary. And for the first time, they had no choice but to respect it. I learned a valuable lesson through this experience. Family isn't just about blood. It's about mutual love, respect, and support. And if that's not there, then sometimes, the best thing you can do is walk away. Now, I live a life of peace, free from the burden of being the family's sole provider. And in doing so, I found something I had lost along the way, my own happiness.